Hey everybody, I'm Amber.
And I'm Maddie.
And we're
Witches Talking Tarot.
And today we are talking about the Banshee, the Celtic fairy and or paranormal creature, depending on how you think about it. The way I read it, both are two things can be true, and with the Banshee, that is how this goes. From the way I understood everything we read, which we're gonna get into. I'm very excited though, because I grew up with Banshee shit in pop culture for absolutely no reason, honestly. I don't see how Banshees are in so much pop culture. Maybe it was just Scooby-Doo brought the Banshee into my realm of thinking as a young person. But for me, forever, the Banshee is going to be this bluish old lady.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very much curvy in stature.
It's so funny you say that because in my late high school years, Teen Wolf, the remake came out, and Banshees were beautiful.
Oh.
They were very alluring and beautiful. Okay. The main character finds out she's a Banshee, and she's pretty much like a normal girl going through high school. She just has this power, this witchy power she can't control, which is to scream when someone's going to die, which later comes into play. Spoiler alert, hey, it's been 10 years when her best friend dies. It was so cool.
Okay,
though.
You did tell me about this.
I was such an epic scene because she's fighting or something like that. She's trying to stay alive. All of a sudden she stops and she covers her ears and she screams her best friend's name. And she's like, oh my God, Allison. She can't hold it in anymore. She can't hold it in.
She literally can't because it's the death scream. It has to come out.
And as soon as she says it, a tear comes down her eyes, and cue scene, her best friend gets stabbed in the fucking stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just sitting there in complete shock that she screamed her best friend's name. And there's plenty of scenes where they're no, don't fucking do it. Don't do it. Because they know what that means.
Right.
And she's
she can't help it so because it has to happen.
Yes.
So in folklore,
it's pretty kick-ass.
Banshees, when they scream, that portends the death of somebody in the life of the witness to the Banshee scream. And by witness, I do not necessarily mean visually, hearing the Banshee scream counts folklore, just as much.
Folklore, they're mostly seen as these monsters or these shadowy people, you know what I mean?
Right.
But what I like about that modern interpretation is it shows that they don't like to scream either. They're not
trying to death wail. It is it's like the Valkyries.
It's
it's their job. They have to alert the death is coming.
And some witches can see ghosts.
Right.
Some witches are really good at tarot. Some witches, unfortunately,
can see death.
And they scream.
And some Banshees are dedicated to a specific family, which I find really interesting.
Right. That is so interesting. Oh
and I believe that was in all of the Celtic folk, not just one of the branches.
From what I read, it was specifically Mac or O'Reilly,
Mac,
or
and the
McAfee,
or MacManus, Well, actually, we're McManus, not MacManus. So does it count if there's that? Does the A have to be there?
Well, I think it also has I'm trying to think, basically those
also
type of Irish names. Because you've got the O's, you've got the Mac, and what else am I missing? There's, more, little parentheses, what the fuck are they?
O'Reilly, O'Neill, whatever.
Orion is one of them.
Yeah. And the Mix or the Max, however you want to do that.
And then so it would be Mick, maybe?
Yeah, because my grandmother's maiden name was McManus, M-C. So big M, little C, big M, A-N-U-S.
My great-great-grandmother was an immigrant on my grandfather's side, and her name was Guchnite.
Yeah.
Guchnite, which was German, I believe. German or Swedish. And they changed it to Goodnight when they moved to America.
That's cool. We were, it was Razumovsky when we were over in Russia, and then they shortened it to Umov with a V at the end. or I'm sorry, it went from Razumovsky to Razumov to Umov with a V at the end.
I'm curious.
To Umov with 2 F's when we came to America.
Yeah, it's crazy how they changed, because like on my grandpa's side it was Guchnai, and then it turned to Good Night, and then my biological father's side, I have no idea. They ended up changing it once in like the 20s. It became really bad to have their name for reasons, so they changed it to Simple Black. Yeah.
No, I understand, because like I don't think that on my grandmother's side, Shaw, I don't think that was changed from when they were over in Ireland to when they came over here. And McManus, as far as I know, it was always just McManus. The Russian
it's
name
Dutch. It's German and Dutch. That's what I thought, because Guchnai sounds very German, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. That's what my thought, because I was like, is that German or Swedish? Yeah, it is German.
No, that makes sense. I mean, either way, but yeah. Do you think that Mick and Max are probably both included in that O or Mac?
I definitely do, because from what I read, it was just strictly...
Got a family Banshee, y'all. Sorry,
it was like strictly old Irish names, and then there was O, and there was like...
Maybe I'm the family Banshee.
Oh my god.
Well, like... I just, I'd be working with
and I think there was
and the liminal.
There was also a mention of like maybe some Scottish, but mostly Irish, from what I understand, right?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, and then so I'm gonna let you guys in on this little thought that came to me that I told Maddie about
Flanagan
earlier. See, it's funny because Flannery was one of the names that popped in my head when you were like, what are the other like apostrophe names? And I was like, Flannery, that's not an apostrophe.
I actually went to school with a guy whose last name was Fitzgerald.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty Fitzy. That's nice and
Is
Irish.
that Scottish or Irish?
I think it's Irish. I don't know.
I was like, your last name's really Fitzgerald? Fucking Irish.
Dude, I was going to say, like, if my last name was Fitzgerald and my nickname was not Fitz or Fitzy, I'd be pissed. Like, man, like, all the missed best nickname ever, Fitzy. Just saying. Don't call me that, because there's no reason to. But if my last name was Fitzgerald, you better believe some of my friends better be calling me fucking Fitzy.
People used to call him Fitzpatrick. I feel kind of bad for the kid now. Now I'm like, damn, that is rough.
Yeah, that is rough.
That is so shitty.
That is, that's rough. That is not,
That's me!
But like, okay, so I make the joke, am I the family Banshee? But I've talked to you guys before on the show about how when my little brother-in-law passed away, I astral projected to the underworld and saw him, because I was laying on the couch with my husband. We were on his aunt's pull-out couch because we totally invaded that poor woman's house. But, that's what happens when death happens, right? You come together as a family. So I was in the middle of a house full of people and trying to grieve, and I just let out the most powerful silent scream that I've ever had, and that's when I astral projected to the underworld. And I always thought it was the power of the pain of that scream that took me there. And I told Maddie that doing the research for our Banshee episode, as well as the next episode of Orpheus and Eurydice, like, all of these things together made me think about that moment, and I wondered, like, was it something like a Banshee scream, or was it something like that pulled me into a realm where the gods took pity and took me there? Or was it astral projection? Until this research, I've never questioned that it was anything but astral projection, but now I wonder, was it something like a Banshee scream? I don't know, but it's questions, because I don't know, guys. And so I'm just sharing my questions with you too, because I posed the thing to Maddie because it popped in my head, and I felt like it went really well with, the whole Banshee thing, because I don't think without that scream I ever would have gone where I went, right? Like, that was the catalyst for me traveling through the underworld and finding him. But was that it? Was that the thing that took me there? You know what I mean? Versus astral projection? Was it not that at all? I don't know, but the whole Banshee scream has made me question all of it, because the Banshee scream, like you were talking with the show, it portends death. Somebody's going to die when the Banshee screams, right? And it's not usually particularly like somebody's name, right?
Right.
But it can be like, or it can be directed at a particular person, you know, like one of the things that I read when I was looking into different Banshee lore, because I was curious about what the American Banshee lore was, along with the Celtic, right? Because I figured the Appalachians,
Native Americans,
and Native Americans, but I thought because so many Celtic people came over, right? I thought, so I looked that up too, and this one person had put like their own personal experience with the Banshee scream. Like their family very much followed the Irish folklore and lifestyle that they'd had from the old country kind of thing, right? And so she's talking about like when her great grandmother was dying, the great grandmother's sisters were standing at the foot of the bed, right? And they both they were the family Keeners, and they let out this wail that was like, she said it was this otherworldly thing that if you're a Keener, you know how to do it, but you know, it's just something that is very eerie and you'll never kind of forget hearing it, right? They had thought the grandmother had just died. Like everybody had thought the grandmother had just died. The sisters let out the scream. The great grandmother shoots up in bed and says, "Can I go now?" And then dies. Like falls back and dies.
Oh, how sad.
But I mean, like I think the way it was pretended was that it was like a long, like the Irish custom is to have all of your family members around your bed as you pass away.
That's what we do in my family.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a Native American custom as well. My family's too spread out.
Oh, they don't. They're too
well, when his brother passed, we were all there. When my uncle passed. But I mean, I guess it just depends on how...
It depends on the family,
they pass away, I guess. Like, you know, sudden deaths, you can't be there.
No.
The people that were not sudden, yes, we did.
I remember...
to a degree. With my uncle that passed away in 2017, we had a living funeral where everybody went and spent time with him while he was in hospice. And then when he was ready to be alone with his wife and son, he said, I just want to be with my wife and son now. And then, you know.
Death got me fucked up because, guys, I'm going to cry a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just, like, imagining myself, and I know that, like, I would probably be like, come with me. That got me fucked up. Not going to lie. Yeah. That hit me hard for some reason. Yeah. But I think that I would, because that's who I am. I don't want to go alone.
Yeah, no, I get that. The old couple from Titanic, you know what I mean? Like that is the best way to go.
I hate death. I have like such an issue with it. Like, no lie.
No, I understand.
But it is something like in my family that like we all get around the person. My mom and my grandma were there when my great grandmother passed. All of them were there, and they all swear that they saw her body. We all have the gift, and they all saw her body, her soul leave her body and go up. And everybody swears to this day that they saw it. It was the weirdest thing, and I believe it.
I felt it when Ben left.
I
embarrassed Corey. I didn't mean to, but like the wind just like it left me, and I fell. I busted my knees open on the hospital floor. Like it was like I felt the pull, you know, like, and the air was taken out of me, and I just fell. And then later that night is when I did the scream, because I just couldn't handle the pain. And that is what grief does to you. It is a deep pain, and that is where this Banshee scream comes from, and that is where keening comes from.
Well, that's why
because it's not just the Irish that have, it's not just the Celts that have. The Romans, like, there's an island in Sicily where their tradition is there are women, just like in the Celtic, the Keeners, there are women on the island that still do the old practice of they mourn the body for everybody loudly. They wail and they follow it to its gravesite and they scream out their pain because it's healthy. It's healthy to let our grief go. And I think that's what the Banshee teaches us.
Well, and I think I had read a theory as well, or maybe it was a fiction thing, I don't remember, but I think I believe this, that the Banshee, because maybe it's because I'm a witch and I have sympathy for bastards and broken things. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? What is it? Imps, bastards, and broken things. But I think that maybe the Banshee feels the pain that the family will feel, and that's why she cannot control the wail, the scream, the cry.
She
the
preemptively
song.
gives out the keening cry. She starts the mourning process for them because
Right. Mm-hmm.
that is the hardest part, to snap out of the days of not wanting to accept death,
Mm-hmm.
to being able to mourn that death. And mourning death is an incredibly important thing. And I'm just realizing how important the Banshee's role in society was, from the standpoint of, you know, they say the Banshee's scream alerted that death was coming to a family. And they say that the Banshee washed the death shrouds for those about to die. And it gave rise, the Banshee's scream gave rise to the art of keening, which is a beautiful, mournful, from the depths of your soul, vocalization. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even necessarily call it singing or screaming. It's you're vocalizing your emotions. Mm-hmm. You're not speaking, you're not saying words, it's noise.
Well,
but
I know some African tribes do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they're mourning.
Uh-huh. I mean, I think it's so common, which is why part of what I want in life is to change the American funeral industry, because it's so unhealthy for people.
Oh, it's so unhealthy. I've been to multiple different religious funerals. I've been to a Catholic one, I've been to multiple regular Christian ones, and I've been to a pagan one. By far, my favorite, spiritually, it has got to be the pagan one. You know what I mean? It's a celebration and it is like releasing everything, but it's also celebration. Like I don't know if I want to say traditionally or whatever, like ritualistically, I have to say I do love the Catholic.
Yeah, my Uncle Steve's funeral was beautiful. Uncle mm-hmm. Steve was the one that...
But it's also very quiet. You don't want to say anything, right, because they're doing the ritual.
And honestly, like, the funeral was in a building bigger than my house. And there were so many people there. Like, literally, the building was full and there were people outside.
Those are my favorite kinds of funerals. Not that there are ever favorite...
the love.
There's
like,
so
and I
many
never
different
understood
people. With my aunt, when she passed away, there were Christians and there were Mormons that she was friends with, and then you have the bikers because she rode with them, and then you got the acid heads because she was a 60s stoner acid free, flower power girl, and that she hadn't seen in maybe 30 fucking years, and they've got their dreads and they've got their everything. Very similar to the scene at the end of Big Fish. I love that.
Oh yeah, like I mean, when I was a teenager and I was at his funeral, I didn't understand why it was so crowded. As an adult, I've read his obituary, and he was like a huge part of the LGBT community. Like in Houston, he was organized, like a grassroots organizer for like their mental health programs and stuff like that from like the 70s on.
See, I love that because it's like
people like they poured.
That's what I want to be in this community. You know, like I
want to be that kind of
I want to because like I didn't.
Not like self-important, but I just mean like
to the community.
He did so much, and like he was behind the scenes most of the time. Mm-hmm. But when he died, they came out.
Right.
Everybody came out.
Well, it's like when...
because it's important to mourn your dead, which is
right.
what the Banshee teaches us.
When we had a
I didn't think we'd be learning so much
I
today.
know. I'm like, damn, this got deep. When a local high priestess died, so many people came, so many different people,
Yes.
and she had been an activist for the pagan and the witchcraft community since the 70s. She had met the original, what the fuck his name is, from the early 1950s.
Oh, Scott Cunningham?
She had met Scott Cunningham. She did meet Scott Cunningham. She met the Bucky, what's his name?
Buckner, Raymond
yeah.
Raymond S. Buckley.
Buckley.
That's who I was trying to think of when I said Scott Cunningham.
She had met all of these people, and she had worked her ass off from the 70s when the flower power witchy movement really took off around here. Yeah. And onward. And she died in her 90s, and everybody remembered what she did. Mm-hmm. She helped get the Church of Wicca or witchcraft acknowledged as an actual church in the United States. And she's from
so we can
our
hold public
area.
rituals.
Yes,
like
exactly.
PPD.
She was a spiritual religious activist, and she was so fucking amazing, and she was so fucking wise.
And you know what? I'm just gonna say, this is why, there's certain kinds of self-love I can truck with, and there's certain kinds of self-love that I think is just selfish. Such as one day I was scrolling through Twitter, and this lady had tweeted, really good friend of mine, one of my best friends, I think is what she said, died, and I'm supposed to speak at his funeral today, but I'm not up for that, so I'm gonna go shopping instead.
What?
I know, wouldn't you want somebody to be there for you? How can you go this
because
is self-love?
It's self-care.
Exactly.
Yeah, I disagree.
I don't think that's right. You have to honor your dead. This is Samhain. This is the time of the year you have to honor your dead. It's so important. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do. You should honor your dead.
I've been lighting incense and candles every single day for the ancestors, and I have plans for that. But it has been an amazing experience, and October is coming to an end soon, and I may continue to do so. I haven't decided.
I'm very close to my ancestors. I follow an ancestral path. I've always been connected with my deceased grandmother, who was gone before I was the twinkle of anybody's eye. You know what I mean? I was raised Christian, but I talked to my dead relatives more than I prayed to God by any means. It's important to remember your dead. It's important to remember the dead. It's important for you to be remembered, I would almost guarantee. Again, not telling you how you feel, but I think that's some part of all of us. We want to be remembered. That's why we do.
Well, it's like anything. The Mexican culture. You have to remember them. If you don't remember them,
because I was listening to an episode of the Full Circle podcast with Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, who have voices like butter, guys. You should totally go listen to them. And you know what? Maybe I'll just put their promo at the end of this so you can listen to their voices. But they did an episode about the AIDS epidemic, and it made me look up my uncle's obituary. And I learned so much about him that I didn't know. Because, to me, my uncle was the guy that introduced me to Johnny Depp by putting Cry Baby on when I was 7 years old. He was the guy that he taught me how to play poker. He was the guy that introduced me to sci-fi and not Lily Tomlin, but Lily Taylor. He and Uncle Glenn, they were just two really cool guys who gave gorgeous gifts. I won't lie, their gifts did stand out among the other relatives, probably for a reason, because they were gay. But my uncle did pass away because of HIV-related complications. And so when I was listening to their AIDS epidemic episode, it really just made me think about my uncle, and I looked up his obituary, and I learned all this shit about him, and I'm like, this is the time of the year that I have to honor the dead. Not that I have to, but this is the time of the year for honoring the dead. And because he was so behind the scenes, are they going to forget about him now that it's been going on 30 years since he passed, because he passed in the 90s. So going on 30 years since he passed, like, are they going to remember him anymore? Because I do believe in the Mexican death, and the third death is when nobody remembers you anymore. Your name's no longer spoken. And I don't necessarily want him to be revered, but I don't want him to die too soon. I want his spirit to be honored for as long as it can be, you know? And so, like, yeah, it's very important. It's very important to honor your loved ones.
So would you
the
say
deceased.
the Banshee is misunderstood?
I 100%.
And she's misunderstood because so is death.
Exactly. That is exactly what I would say.
Something also that Amber and I had looked up was, what was it? Callooning?
Kloodling, I think is what she said. Kloodling.
It's a
Kloodling.
Swedish herding call, which they yell down from the mountains, which sounds very much like a scream, but a beautiful, ancient, musical scream, which I think could easily have been mistaken as a Banshee call.
I mean, it sounded just like Celtic keening, so
it did.
I mean,
It's probably the same thing,
right?
You know what I mean?
Regionally has different names, but like it's this not mournful, but like, again, that deep emotional sound, most likely because they're trying to make their voices carry, right? But then as it moves through the trees, the sound gets distorted.
And all the animals hear it, though. So I wonder, like, with the deer, what are the deer thinking? Well, what are the birds thinking?
Speaking of the deer, the Banshee was said to be the fairy herders. So fairy cattle were deer, so they would herd the deer, the Banshees would, so it makes perfect sense with the kloodling or the keening or cluling or the thing.
Swedish herding calls,
yes,
or Irish herding.
Exactly. But like it seems like it would go hand in hand,
right? And it goes. You know what's so crazy is, like, in America we do the shit. It's the same thing. It's just not as pretty,
right?
You know,
and or maybe it used to be thought of as pretty, but we've made it into a here, break it.
Right, stupidity. Like, but yes. I bet it used to be pretty. But the thing is, cows really be liking music, because, like, my grandma used to sing to their fucking cow, and he would let her pet it.
Yeah.
You know, but I love animals.
Yeah, I believe animals do respond to
music. Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, like I feel like I personally hold a belief that music, like humans having music, comes from the noises that animals make. So it would make perfect sense to me that our attempt at creating those noises would attract those animals.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because I don't know, I think, like, every time we do one of these episodes, I go, I've, like, never thought of it like this before. And I've never thought of the Banshee as anything but, you know, the dark fairy creature in the woods. Over, you know, right, because, like, I heard or read, because I've started doing this thing when I drive where I have Google read me a website. So, like, does it count as reading or listening? I'm not sure.
I think it'd be like an audiobook. So.
Right. So I, quote unquote, read that they're described as 1 to 4 feet high. Which goes hand in hand with that fairy thing. Right. But also, you know, they're, like we mentioned at the beginning, the paranormal thing, they might be dead women or young ladies that died a traumatic death, right? Yeah. Or in childbirth.
Well, one of the things that I read was, like, young women that died during childbirth. To me, that goes very well with the screaming.
Yep. Oh, God. But I let out a scream that my doctor said was heard through the entire maternity ward with Lolly.
Oh, my God.
It was the only noise I made.
Props to House of Dragon. I'm going to say it right now, because they made that shit look real. Like, not the C-section, but, like, the part when she's like, I think I called the nurse a cunt. I know I did. That bitch put my fucking, like, I remember she was like, I'm gonna put this over your hair because we're going in for C-section. And it was, like, falling off my head like a fucking French barrette. I'm like, is this on, bitch? This is not on. What are you thinking? I came back after I was all fucked up on drugs, and I was like, I'm sorry.
I bet worse happens. I don't know. Like, Lolly was the one where I got to the hospital, and hour, like to the minute, 1 hour before she was born. And my doctor, who'd been trying to convince me that I wanted an epidural the whole time, and I was like, nope, I want natural. By the time we got there, he was like, well, you got your wish. Like, you don't have time for an epidural now. And I was like, but now I want one. So, I watched that TLC show about...
I love it. A baby story.
Yes, a baby story all the time. So I refuse to be one of those girls who was like, I can't do this. Like, bitch, you have to.
I was, but to be fair,
you couldn't
do it.
Yeah, like, very different. But I refuse to be one of those. So I was like, not going to make a noise, not going to make a noise. But guys and gals, just so you know, when your hips spread for childbirth, you can feel that shit. It's not like no feeling. You can feel it. I know what a Thanksgiving turkey wishbone feels like. Like 100%. I know what that feels like when your bones literally spread apart. And I screamed, and they said you could hear it through the entire maternity ward. And every mother who hadn't given birth yet was terrified.
We were in the maternity ward. This was my favorite part. We were in the maternity ward. I got that epidural. I'm not feeling jack shit. I'm laying there. I'm feeling good. And all of a sudden we hear, wah, wah. And I was like, oh my God, that bitch just had her baby next door. It was like, I didn't hear anything except that baby's cry. So props to her. She was silent as fuck, and then you hear the scream of a baby.
Yep, my first two, that's how it was. But I had an epidural with them.
Yeah, the epidural was... No, fuck the epidural. The pain blockers, I didn't even feel like I had surgery for like 48 hours.
That's nice.
I was like, I can walk. This is great. But like, it ain't always gonna be that way.
Yeah.
Like,
but I will say with my natural baby, I was healed in like 2 days. With my other two, I had to be sewn and things.
So is it true, like with natural birth?
Yep, your body reacts just goes so much better. Yep.
Well, because you have to be back on track and like evolutionarily speaking, you've got to, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Be able to get up and protect yourself and
Yep. I always said if I had another one, I'd do it natural again because the healing, like, even though feeling my hips come apart was one of the most painful things ever, but I don't even remember it. Like, I don't remember it. I know it happened, but I don't remember what that pain was. I just know how bad that pain was. But like my mom says, she thinks we can't remember the pain.
On purpose. So
on purpose, so we'll have more. Exactly.
Yep. That's exactly what I think it is. It's fucking evolution, and it's so
it makes you forget that it's going to be awful for a little while. I'm one of those
weirdos, and I can honestly say I love childbirth, and I wish that I could have done mine completely. And that's the evolution speaking, Maddie. That's the evolution speaking. Like, but I
totally get it though. Like, I don't fault you that.
Right?
Yeah,
like, it's so empowering.
It is. Like I said, if I had another, I would have done that one natural as well. Like, pain be gone.
And I can't lie. Like, my favorite part is the silence and then the cry. You know what I mean? Because everybody's
just
quiet.
like holding their breath.
And then there's, and it's like, that's the most amazing sound in the world.
Yeah. With Gia, my middle one, I was like, nurse, you need to get the doctor, like, now. Like, this thing's, like, I can feel her. She's coming out. Like, I had an epidural, but it was, like, only halfway done or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I could feel the pressure. And she had started moving down the birth canal.
The pressure. It's working. No, it ain't, bitch. I can feel it. I swear to God. Like, it's not working.
Yeah, that's what I said. And they're like, trust me, you know if you could feel
that's what they told
me.
And
I disagreed. And then I had natural childbirth. And I said, you're right, Dr. Hannah. You were right. I didn't feel it last time. You were right. I was wrong. Sorry about it. Because he did. He kept telling me, he's like, no, I promise you.
That's what they told me too. Like,
they weren't lying. They were right. They were right. Like I promise you. Like, because
it doesn't feel like it at the time. But like, fucking, oh shit, what was I gonna say? It's so hard for me sometimes to watch, like, if we're watching TV, specifically like medieval TV. I'm sorry I keep mentioning House of Dragon, you guys. But like, there are scenes in movies and shows, whatever, where it's like medieval and they're like talking to the husband, and I mean Bridgerton, this happened in Bridgerton, and they're like, look,
you can only save one.
Yeah, well, not only that, but also she's been in labor for 2 days. The womb is not opening. Something's wrong. And you can see the woman in the background still pushing. That's exactly what would have happened to me if it wasn't for modern medicine.
Yeah, no.
Exactly what would have happened to me.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why it's got me every time I see it. It's almost like a PTSD throwback, because it's like, if it was not for modern medicine, that's what would have happened to me.
Yep.
You know.
No,
it's
totally
crazy.
But I mean, but that whole like fear of dying in childbirth is like very real for women, especially pre-modern medicine. So again, the Banshee thing. The Banshee taught us a lot more than we ever realized. You
literally die screaming.
You did, yeah, exactly. And that is your death wail. That's your death cry. Yep. That's where it came from, like 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure
right?
Like,
the scream.
Yeah. Like, I don't know why the fairies got brought into it, but to me, that makes the most sense. The young ladies dying in childbirth, not just any traumatic death, but dying in childbirth, because yes, you probably died with one last final gut-wrenching wail as you tried to bring your child into this world. That is some heart-wrenching ass shit.
It's hard, isn't it?
The Banshee, we apologize to you. You are a misunderstood,
strong, powerful
creature.
Woman that, once again, is totally consorted throughout history because of the person who holds the pen and writes the story. You know what I mean? I saw a post about this old cracked out man. He did a lot of acid, as he says. It was in the People of New York. So if you guys have seen this video, leave a comment on our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and subscribe. But he said men had the strength to create certain tools, and when he created certain tools, he created the pen, and he took over the story. And I think that has a lot to do with the Banshee.
I think so too. But
I know, old acid head.
Well, and I go like, okay, so one of the things that we haven't touched on yet, I don't think, is that they believed they carried the souls of the dead to the other world. So again, like that young mother, because you lost a lot of children back in the day. So like having it be a young woman who died in childbirth, that like, again, it very much resonates that this young woman who died trying to bring her child into the world would be the perfect receptacle to enshroud and then carry across the veil those who have passed.
I think so too. Like that.
I think the Banshee's a much more beautiful story than pop culture has given her.
I think so too. I really do. And props to Teen Wolf, modern Teen Wolf, MTV.
Although, do you think that a Banshee would be something that's alive, or would it strictly be like...
You know what? Part of me has wondered if a Banshee, and this is before Teen Wolf.
And I say this as me having questioned earlier in this episode if I am my family's Banshee.
No,
so
I do.
I'm not trying to be shitty. It's a real question that I've never thought about before.
I think being a Banshee, and this is just me, I think, it could be a supernatural thing, but I think it's a gift that a witch has. Just like I and many others can see and speak to the dead. Many others can read tea. Many others can do pendulums. Some are great at tarot. So everybody has their own gift. Some can see auras. Some can be empathic. Right. Some can have multiple. Yes. And some, unfortunately, can predict or be in tune with death. And that has to do with the scream. I do. I think it is a gift that a witch holds.
I wonder if that's why I'm so obsessed with giving, like, making other people vocalize their grief.
I don't know.
Because
that's truly my belief, and I felt that way for a long time. I actually started to write a little short story about it. I'm not even lying. Basically, that is their gift. Their gift. So
I don't know. It's like, man, some things I don't expect I'm gonna learn so much from, you know? I hope you guys learned a lot.
So do you think it's a physical thing, or do you think it's a witch? Do you think it's a spirit? What do you think about the Banshee?
Prior to this, I thought of it as strictly a spirit that I never even thought of Banshees as having been
people.
Well, no, I totally did, but like not like a young lady who died in childbirth kind of people, right? If I thought of a Banshee as something other than like a not demonic spirit, but like dark fairy spirit, right? Because, like, I think of them as something other than just a fairy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of like the kite.
Like a goblin. Like
or,
something.
yeah, something like...
Part of
like,
the fae, but not a fairy.
Like, yeah. Like if a poltergeist was a thing, it would be a banshee.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. Prior to this. Now I think that the banshee is multiple things. I think it is social knowledge that is passed down in a folklore way, right? Because it's telling you have to mourn your dead. It's telling you have to honor the dead. It's telling you have to pay attention enough to know when death is coming, because the signs are everywhere. And if you're sensitive, then you'll get them.
What if that was the message that you were getting when
the scream?
Week, yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Wait, do you mean like a message like from a banshee that somebody was dying?
No,
okay. I'm being too dense right now. I don't understand.
I don't know. I'll talk. We'll
talk. Okay. But like, I do believe now it's more of a role. And maybe I think maybe finishing my sentence, I understand what you were saying. But I think it's like a role that humanity needs.
It's almost like a wise woman.
Yes. Like, and humanity needs it, like, because it's a thing that we need. Like, we maybe don't like to deal with death. Of course, it makes
sense that there would be stories twisting her,
right? Because people are afraid, just like Hecate.
Yes,
like we were talking. Like,
exactly.
People they see her as a dark goddess because she's associated with the new moon. So the sky is dark of moonlight, but it's full of starlight. You know what I mean? On nights with no moons, you still have the stars.
Right.
You know, and you can see the stars better sometimes without the moon interfering with your vision, you know? So, like, but most people only look at it from the standpoint of there's no moon, it's a dark night, it's a scary night. You know, the crossroads are a scary place. You have to make decisions at crossroads. Exactly. Black hounds represent, you know, satanic stuff. Black cats represent bad luck. You know, but really none of that's true. Black animals represent prosperity, we've learned.
Right. Check out our last week's episode.
Yeah, for sure. Black cats, man. We had a special guest, YouTube. You should see him. He did all sorts of things for you. But yeah, like, tell us what you think about banshees. Like, did we change your thoughts on banshees? I need to know, because we changed my thoughts on banshees.
I know. I'm over.
Yeah. Comment on YouTube, please. And if you're not on YouTube, if you're not watching us on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Pod or Amazon or Google or wherever you like to get your podcasts at, go to Twitter at Classiest Witches, hashtag Witches Made Me Do It, and then tell us what your thoughts on banshees are and if we affected them at all. Because I am fucking dying to know. But not literally, because please don't scream.
Bye, Melissa.
Bye, Melissa. Thanks for coming to sit with us for a depressing spell.
Right?